bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs.
Bows and TKOs. We are live, episode 105, coming at you on this beautiful Monday evening in the Valley. It's freaking hot out here. I'm so excited for the 4th of July holiday. Hit Montana, getting some 90s, 80s, and 70 degree days. And boy, do we got a show. I mean, we got fights that have been announced. We'll recap the PFL action. And in my opinion, card of the year, International Fight Week, UFC 317. I try to tell y'all. Anyways, I'm your host, Shane Gillette, for this weekly MMA podcast, streaming anywhere you get your podcasts and videos on YouTube. And I try to tell people, all the flack on UFC 317 on social media that it was going to deliver. It over-delivered a little bit on my expectations. I think there was a couple things that could have made it even that much better. And now, in the pay-per-view, they announced UFC 318, and everyone is just talking shit on UFC 318. This isn't a pay-per-view card, blah, blah, blah. I totally disagree. We'll quickly talk about it. Most of the people are talking about the actual pay-per-view, but there is also some prelim fights, and I don't know if the card's completely finalized. It might be, some additional fights added still to this point. But let's take a look. So we got in the prelims. Let me double check here. So just announced it. And, I can't find it. The internet's not even updated yet. Let's see. But everyone was really ripping into it. So let's just start from the top because I don't know where all these are. The rest of these fights are going to sit. First off, if you watch the last Max Holloway-Dustin Poirier fight, this is their third rendition. Max Holloway fought Dustin Poirier when he first came into the UFC. They were both at featherweight, and Max wasn't prepared. Dustin made slight work. In the second bout, Dustin controlled early, and Max vintagely, the Blessed Express, just kept on trucking and put volume on, a lot reminiscent of what we saw with Royval Van. That's a certified banger. Dustin's final fight. Max Holloway trying to prove that he belongs in the lightweight division. I mean, that's probably going to be just as good, if not anything better than anything we saw at UFC 317. We get Dan Ige, Patricio Pitbull. Patricio trying to avenge what happened to him against Yair. I think Dan Ige is a good stylistic matchup for some fun boxing. I think that'll be a vicious fight. I don't think Atiba Gautier and Robert Valentin deserve to be on the pay-per-view. It is what it is. But it's on the pay-per-view because it will be a high-paced, high-intensity, violent scrap, and I do think it over-delivers for the fans. And then the other two fights are just brilliant matchmaking, certified violence with Paulo Costa taking on Roman Kopylov. I mean, that should be one hell of a kickboxing showdown. And then we get Michael Johnson and Daniel Zellhuber, which Daniel Zellhuber at the Sphere last year put on one hell of a fight. Michael Johnson's always game. He's a veteran. He's been there. He's done that. I mean, there isn't a bad fight on that card stylistically. Maybe it lacks the names, but I'm all for it. In the prelims, we get Kevin Holland, Daniel Rodrigues. I expect that to be great. We get Ryan Spann, Lucas Bresky, solid fight. Jimmy Crute, Marcin Prochnio, solid fight. We get Kyler Phillips, Vinicius Oliveira. Absolutely bonker fight in the bantamweight division. We have Neil Magny and Gunnar Nelson. Adam Fugit and Islam Dulatov. Marvin Vittori, Brendan Allen. There's beef there. That'll be a grappling heavy fight, but it's still going to be a great 15-minute showdown. And then, of course, Ikram Aliskerov and Bruno Frajeda. I think that's another awesome banger. So if you're like, dang, UFC 318 doesn't look good, just remember you heard it here first. It's going to deliver. Be patient. Be patient. But some fights that we have announced. We have Umar C taking on Bredson Ribeiro September 6th. And Shauna Bannon taking on Sam Hughes. That'll be in Paris. We also have Davey Grant taking on Damon Blackshear July 26th. I'm glad we get to see Damon back in the octagon. And then Ray Suaria taking on Nayam Jargol Tuma de Mabarrel August 22nd. Will be great to see Ray back in the octagon. But one thing this weekend showcased is that nothing else has any standing on what the UFC does in a pay-per-view product, the promotion, the telecast, the announcers, the fights. And PFL tried its best, which, this is supposed to be the best part of their season, semifinals, the finals in August. But the PFL just can't match up. This is the last of the semifinals before their finals. And then in August, they have the PFL Africa card July 19th. But this card overall was pretty much a snooze fest. I don't think really any of the matchups this far in the finals really have me super pumped either. But we had Fabian Edwards with the unanimous decision over Josh Silveira. Josh landed some clean shots early, but Fabian got the victory. Sullivan Colley with the unanimous decision over Phil Davis. He was close to a finish as well. Sergio Pettis finally back with the unanimous decision over Rafian Stotts. Dalton Rosta with the unanimous decision over Aaron Jeffrey. I thought we'd see some more violence there. And then Antonio Carlos Jr. with the unanimous decision over Simeon Powell. Valentin Moldovsky and Alexander Romanov, no contest. Romanov is actually moving on because of a illegal hit to the nuts. It seemed like Romanov was down bad. He went to the hospital. He couldn't get back up. I haven't seen if he has, what his injury is, ruptured testicle or what. But, I don't think he would fake that. He did ask the official what would happen to me. Am I going to lose the fight? He wouldn't answer it, but it must have been pretty bad. And then we had Oleg Popov with the unanimous decision over Rodrigo Nascimento. He looked pretty solid in that fight. So a lot of grappling, a lot of decisions. Again, compared to what we saw at UFC 317, an absolute snooze fest. And I forgot to preview this because I didn't even know what was going on. But we had Jake Paul winning another bout against Julio Chavez Jr., right? Let's see. Yeah, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., he won via decision. And then we had Holly Holm getting a boxing dub, pretty dominant display by the ex-boxer Holly Holm. But enough of that. Let's talk about UFC 317. I went 8-3 on my picks. Overall, that's 636 wins, 323 losses, 9 no contests and draws. On the year, 152 wins, 82 losses, 2 no contests and draws. Now again, there was a lot of flack coming in about this card not living up to International Fight Week expectations, and they weren't excited about the Ilia Charles fight. Everyone wanted Ilia Islam, including myself. But I previewed the card saying it would be an 8 out of 10, that there was some great matchmaking. I expected some fireworks in store, and this card absolutely delivered. As typical Vegas crowds go, the fans didn't really show up into the main card, but the main card was packed. The energy was insane. I wish I was there. Not going to pay $1,000 for a 100-level seat, though. There was nonstop action from the start of the card. Even the decisions were great, hard-fought bouts, high-action fights. There was 6 finishes, 4 of them in the first round. I really think Ilia Topuria and Alexandre Pantoja are going to be cemented as legends of the UFC in their respective weight classes. Joshua Van is a rocket ship. He's on a hype train for anything and everything at 23 years old. And then Beneil Dariush, Payton Talbott, Tracy Cortez reminding everyone what they're capable of with really good displays. And then we had RoboCop, Jose Delgado, and Terrance McKinney putting on massive performances with nasty finishes that were bonus-worthy 99 out of 100 cards. Now, I am recapping this a 9 out of 10. Only way I think it could have been a 10 out of 10 is if maybe there was more of competitive fights in the 2 title bouts, and if we could have saw Charles and Ilia really go to town, which we did not. But a good fight we did not break down. We had Jacoby Smith with a round 2 submission via rear naked choke over Nico Price. Jacoby Smith looks strong and explosive. That's why he was a big favorite. I'm excited to see what he does next. He's calling for the top 15. Daniel Cormier said, hey, pump the brakes. We don't need to rush it. I am on the same bandwagon as DC in that one. But before we look at the fights, let's kind of compare how this pay-per-view stacked up for the rest of the year. Off the top of my head, I think it's the best since the 299 to 301 session that we had about a year ago, a little over a year ago. And when we look at the cards, I mean, I don't think a fight night card can match up to this. UFC 311, Makhachev, Moicano. I mean, that wasn't a very great fight. The Merab Umar co-main was a great fight. Yuri Prohaska, Jamal Hill was decent. The rest of the card was meh. So I think it smokes 311. 312 was DDP and Sean Strickland. Zhang Weilei, Tatiana Suarez. I would pick 311 over 312 on that one. 313 was Alex Pajeda and Magomed Ankalaev. Justin Gaethje Fiziev was a great fight. We didn't get to see a lot in the Ignacio Bahamondes Jalen Turner fight. So yeah, I think it was a lot better than 313. 314 was Diego Lopez and Alexander Volkanovski, Chandler Pimblett, Yair Patricio. I mean, that was a solid card, but 317 shit on it. 315 was the Bilal JDM card. Valentina, Manon, Jose Aldo, Zahabi, Grasso, Natalia Silva fight definitely was a lot better than that. And it was a lot better than UFC 316, Merab O'Malley, Kayla Juliana, Gastelum Pfeiffer. So definitely card of the year so far. Yeah, what a fucking awesome pay-per-view. Let's just jump right in. We're going to kick this off in the prelims, where we had Terrance McKinney with a round 1 submission via guillotine choke over Viacheslav Borshchev. And this was just a trademark T-Rex fight, man. You know, he came blasting forward, aggressive as usual, but this time he showcased the grappling with a beautifully timed double leg. I mean, way deep on the hips. He was already, you know, kind of leaning back, got him up against the cage. And the transitions to go from Darce to Anaconda to full mount guillotine, beautiful flow from Terrance. Borshchev really had no chance in this fight. You know, it is a tough break for Viacheslav, who would have liked to stand and trade with Terrance over the course of 15 minutes. But Terrance, man, after this win, he's primed for a major fight, maybe even this summer. And with the time spent on his grappling, he's talked about focusing it on the grappling. T-Rex is becoming a well-rounded fighter. You know, he's going to be a tough out in this lightweight division in his prime. And it only took Terrance 1 total and significant strike with the takedown, 2 submission attempts, and 47 seconds of control time. And Viacheslav landed 2 total and significant strikes. So Terrance extends that winning streak to 2. He is 4-3 since 2023. He's been super active, 7 fights in 2 years. I think he would probably add 1 or 2 more, especially if they're quick. And then Viacheslav extends his losing streak to 2. He's 2-3-1 since 2023. What's next? I would like to see Terrance and Trey Ogden. I think that would be a fantastic matchup. And Viacheslav could take on Joaquin Silva. That would be another fun scrap. Moving on, we had Tracy Cortez with a unanimous decision over Viviane Araujo. And I had a feeling that Tracy was going to show out in this fight. She showed some really good skill at the latter half of the Rose Namajunas fight. But I did not think that she would dominate in the grappling and wrestling exchanges against Viviane, who's a woman who's really lived off grappling in her UFC career. But age obviously plays a factor. But Tracy was down to accept this fight wherever it went. She did really good in the 50-50 positions. She showcased great cardio, grit, and technique. I thought this was the best fight that I've seen from Tracy. And Viviane fought well herself, but she was definitely overmatched by the younger Tracy, who put on a pace for 15 minutes. I really think this is a statement victory for Tracy, who now in the past few years has wins over an up-and-coming Jasmine Jasdavicius and Viviane Araujo. And she stepped up since the loss to the former flyweight champion, Rose, which I think was a huge 5-round lesson for her. And I do think now she's the best version of herself, and she's primed for a big fight. I mean, the grappling was great. I just did not think she would control the entire fight that way. Really, really impressive for Tracy. Tough break for Viviane. She's kind of going to be stuck in purgatory for the back half of her UFC career. Statistically, Viviane only landed 39 total strikes, 22 of them significant. She had a reversal in 1 minute and 43 seconds of control time. Well, Tracy landed 102 total, so about 70 more, 65 significant, 43 more significant. And then she was 3 for 5 in takedown attempts. If she wanted it, she got it. She had a submission attempt, a reversal, and 8 minutes and 17 seconds of control time. So almost a little over 2.5 or a round and a half. So Tracy starts a new winning streak. She's 2-1 since 2023. Viviane starts a new losing streak. She's 2-3 since 2023. And what's next? I mean, I think Tracy's probably going to have to let the division shake out if she wants some fighters higher in the rankings. Unless Maycee Barber can fight this year, that would be a great fight to make. But I'm going to book the division. I do think it'll be Valentina Zhang Weili, Natalia Silva Manon for the number 1. I think we're going to see Alexa Grasso and Rose Namajunas, and then Erin Blanchfield and Jasmine Jasdavicius. So that would, again, put Tracy in a position to have to let these fights shake out or potentially be able to be booked with Maycee Barber. And for Viviane, how about Wang Kong? I thought Wang and Miranda Maverick would be good, but Miranda tore her ACL. So I think that would be actually a better matchup with Vivi. Then another coming out party. Local Phoenix MMA lab, Jose Delgado with a round 1 knockout over Hyder Amil. And as you would expect, Hyder came out hot right away. But man, Jose was game, and he was able to land a beautiful knee right up the middle, threw in some quick exchanges, and just really took the soul out of Hyder. He pressured him to land a few more to get the job done after he had him rocked and he got the finish. I mean, whoo-wee! You can't have a bigger moment on a card like that for Jose Delgado, who's only 2 fights removed from the Contender Series. Statistically, Hyder only landed 3 total and significant strikes. He was 0 for 1 in takedowns. And Jose landed 9 total and significant strikes. He was 0 for 1 in takedown attempts and had the knockdown. So Jose extends that winning streak to 7. He's 3-0 in the UFC. Hyder suffers his first pro loss. He is 4-1 in the UFC. So Jose in the post-fight interview with Joe called for William Gomez for UFC Noche. I'm all about it. That's a great, fantastic fight. And for Hyder, he could fight with Julian Erosa. But you want to talk about violence. You knew it was coming with Gregory RoboCop Rodrigues getting a round 1 knockout over Jack Hermansson. And the tell of the tape was going to be, is Gregory going to be measured enough to not gas himself out? He showed a lot more improved patience in this fight. He didn't throw like everything, like 150% power into every strike. And I think that was a huge step in the right direction because Jack had good footwork. He was able to stay out of range for the most part. Throw in some combos, circle back out. Throw in some combos, circle back out. And he was landing some good shots of his own. They weren't super significant, although he did have RoboCop's face pretty bloodied up. I know that DC and the team were talking that must be scar tissue because it was just slight shots that were opening him up. But I think it would have been really interesting to see rounds 2 and 3 in this fight if it were to go that far. But Gregory was just too much. And when he caught Jack with that left hook, it completely put his lights out, and he was out for a while. It was a tough scene. I wish he didn't eat that last hammer fist at the end. It was really unnecessary. But man, Gregory continues to show why he is an absolute hammer and a wrecking force in the division. Statistically, Jack landed 30 total and significant strikes. He was 0 for 1 in takedown attempts. And Gregory landed 18 total and significant with a knockdown. So Gregory starts a new winning streak. He's 4-2 since 2023. He's been super active. And Jack starts a new losing streak. He's 2-3 since 2022. So what's next? Well, I would love to see Gregory in the highest profile fight that makes sense. And I'd say right now with the division and fights that are booked, that's a matchup with Abus Magomedov. And for Jack, I'd assume he's out for at least 6 months. So how about Dustin Stoltzfus? Moving on to the main card, we had Payton Talbott with unanimous decision over Felipe Lima. And honestly, Payton passed all the tests with flying colors. He stuffed a ton of takedowns from a relentless Lima that really sold out with his game plan of trying to take Payton down and keeping him there. But he didn't have a ton of success of taking Payton down, let alone keeping him down on the canvas. And while he was trying to close distance and take Payton down, Payton landed some really nice combinations and kicks, and that was really the biggest difference in this fight. You know, Lima wasn't very offensive with his attacks when he wasn't going for takedowns or had the takedowns. While Talbot, he was providing good ground and pound. He was striking from bottom. When it was up against the cage, he was throwing elbows and shots. He took offensive advantage every second he could. But both of these men are young, talented prospects in the division. But man, Payton's grappling defense improvements on only a few months turnaround from that Hayoni Barcelos fight is a huge boost for him. That has to be a huge confident boost as well. He talked about this week that the loss to Hayoni is like, if the official wasn't in there and it was me and Barcelos, he would have killed me. And he's like, that's been wearing on me. I wanted to improve. Well, he regained the hype train. He is one of the best prospects in the bantamweight division. Bravo, Payton Talbot. That's the shit you love to see. That's what we wanted to see. And I probably won't be picking against him anytime soon. Statistically, Payton landed 97 total strikes, 59 of them significant. With a reversal, he was 0 for 1 in takedown attempts, and he had 4 minutes and 49 seconds of control time. Now, Felipe landed 37 total strikes, 26 of them significant, and he only went 3 for 15 in takedown attempts. A lot of energy exerted, but he had 3 minutes and 23 seconds of control time. So Payton starts a new winning streak. He moves to 6-1 since 2023, 5-1 in the UFC. And Felipe starts a new losing streak. He's 3-1 since 2023, 2-1 in the UFC. And I saw on social media he broke his foot or his leg again, so he'll be out for some time. While Payton continues to remain active, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him at least one more time this year. So what's next? Well, I think Payton and the veteran Pedro Munoz is a fun scrap. It gives him some veteran experience like Barcelos. I don't think we need to rush him right into the top 15. And for Felipe, he could take on another young up-and-comer in Bekzat Albakan. But moving on to the lightweights, we had Beneil Dariush with a unanimous decision over Renato Moicano. And man, over the course of Dariush's career, I've been a big fan. I typically pick him because he is so well-rounded in his attack. The past few years, though, from an outsider's perspective, it didn't seem like he had the fire he once had, and maybe was closer to retirement, but he reversed all that thought with the fight that he showcased on Saturday night. He still has plenty of runway and fire inside at only 36 years old. You know, he showed up in great shape, and he took it to Moicano everywhere the fight took place. He actually was the one that exhausted Moicano. I thought it would be the other way around. And he was easily able to take Moicano down. So much so that he exhausted his arms out, that he really couldn't have the energy in his arms to fire off any offensive attack and land any damage to win the fight. Round one started pretty measured, but Beneil was landing some big leg kicks and landed one that actually swept Moicano off his feet. But then at the end of the round, Moicano landed a big shot that sat Benny on his ass, and it made you wonder how things would transpire in round two. I had picked Moicano. I was like, oh, yep, he's going to put it on him in round two. But you wouldn't even have known that happened at the end of round one because Benny came out aggressive right away and was putting Moicano on his back foot. You know, this is a tough break for Moicano, but a big statement performance from Beneil. I just hope he could be active again, not fighting once a year. And to be honest, I think the stock that I had put in Moicano was a little bit of putting too much eggs in the BSD stock. And I think that overvalued him as a fighter a little bit. But hey, for Beneil, the year and a half off plus layoff, consecutive losses, to come out, put a statement out like that, you're strong mentally, you're doing the right things. Statement performance. If you don't know, now you know. Remember the name type shit from Beneil Dariush. Now, statistically, Beneil landed 77 total strikes, 56 of them significant. He had 5 takedowns. He was 5 for 5. And at one point, I think in round 2, he just picked up Moicano and sat him down easily. I mean, really, really good looking in the grappling department. And he also had 5 minutes and 53 seconds of control time, so more than a round. Renato landed 38 total strikes, 31 of them significant. He had a reversal, a knockdown, and was 0 for 3 in takedown attempts with a minute and 20 seconds of control time. Now, Beneil ends his 2-fight losing streak. He starts a new winning streak. Renato extends his losing streak to 2. He's 3-2 since 2024. Now, the next matchup for Beneil is somewhat tougher to make, but I think he'll accept anyone. He said that in the post-fight interview. So why not the veteran Michael Chandler? I think that's going to be a great stylistic matchup, because if he doesn't do that, he'll have to take time off again and let the division shake out. So let's book Chandler, Beneil Dariush. And then for Renato, much of the same. I'm just going to say it. Let's put him against fellow ATT trainer Grant Dawson. I just think that's the fight to make. I know they both train out of ATT. They might not want to do it, but I think that's the fight to make. Then moving on, we had Joshua Van with the unanimous decision over Brandon Royval. Coming in, this was the fight of the night frontrunner, but I sure did not expect this fight to be at this high of a pace. And I think this is the frontrunner for fight of the year. And I think this is potentially top 10 best fights of all time in the UFC. I mean, classic Brandon Raw Dog Royval, a volume machine. He was all over Van at the start of round 1, and it took Van a little bit to get going. But once Van realized that it doesn't matter how much Brandon puts in his face, it wasn't going to hurt him, and that his boxing technique would do enough to land more damage, and that was the case. Van landed a lot more efficiently and effectively, but Brandon had some good shots, landed some good kicks early in round 1. Well, round 2, Royval clearly listened to his coaches, because every time he would come out with his loopy shots, Van would counter with some beautiful 1-2s down the middle. Well, when Royval would go in with his loopy shots, he would finish with a nice, beautiful straight left and kicks. Some of the kicks were just kind of like knee shields, getting up, trying to get Van to go back a little bit. And he was landing them cleanly. I thought he landed enough in round 2 to take round 2, but the pace and the intensity from both men had risen, and the fucking scene at T-Mobile, the place was going absolutely bonkers. Then in a winner-takes-all round 3, it was even more insane as both men were bloodied up, but they did not slow down at all. They went for broke even. Brandon has been in a lot of 5-round wars, and he was just going to put off as much volume as he could for 5 minutes and try to do enough to win. And about 2.5 minutes in the final round, it seemed like he might have done enough, but Van just started landing big shots, and he went for it. I mean, Van almost knocked Brandon out with about 10 seconds remaining in the fight, and I think the final minute push in round 3 stole the round for the fight, especially with the big knockdown, which was the most meaningful shot of the fight. And I think the judges had round 2, two judges scored at Royval, 1 scored at Van. So it would have been really interesting if that last minute had transpired differently, or if Van didn't get the knockdown, how that scorecard would have played out. That's how close of a fight this was. So, one thing I want to say is you cannot disrespect Brandon in this fight. What he did coming in, taking a young, fiery prospect on short notice, you got to give the guy credit. And he came in and he fucking put it on. He did everything he could. He made it a firefight. He didn't grapple. He went for fucking broke and put on for the fans. And then on the Joshua Van side, how calm, cool, collected this kid is at 23 years old in a sold-out T-Mobile arena. It's like it didn't even matter. You know, he's not big on social media. He's really just focusing on his craft, and he gets better and better every time we see him in the octagon. From his Charles Johnson fight to this, a completely different level. Wow, what a fight. Holy shit. That was one of those moments that this goes down and etches this card of a card that we talk about for a long time. And I posted on social media on Instagram Saturday night because I was at the Rough MMA promotion here in Phoenix watching Ezra Elliott, the main event, dominate his opponent that had to do a catch weight because he was too big. He looked a lot bigger. Ezra took him down, got the rear naked, 5-0, all first round finishes. He should be on the Contender Series next, coming out of Red Hawk and the MMA lab. But anyways, I posted on social media how ironic it was that the night before the Kelvin Gastelum, Israel Adesanya Hall of Fame ceremony, the same weekend we get this card, potential fight of the year. It's going to be hard to beat, and just that moment. I mean, again, for those of you that are true MMA fans, this is something that we'll look back at years from now like, holy shit, remember that card, remember these moments, remember that fight of the year, because these next two fights had those moments as well. And the stats. I mean, this fight broke all the fucking stats. The first time a fight, it had both opponents go for over 200 significant strikes, and it's only a 3-round fight. I would have absolutely adored to see this go 5, but it is what it is. Statistically, Brandon landed 216 total strikes, 215 of them significant, and Joshua landed 209 total, 204 significant with a knockdown, and the volume was pretty close. You know, Brandon did land some big shots, but you could tell that Joshua Van's punch just had a little bit more zest behind it and definitely wore on Brandon's face more. Now, Joshua extends his winning streak to 5. He's 8-1 since 2023, 9 fights in 2 years. He'll probably get the title fight, 10 fights in 2 years. Fucking 23 years old. This shit is insane, man. And Brandon ends his 2-fight winning streak, starts a new losing streak. He is 3-2 since 2023. So what's next? Well, we know Joshua Van's in line for Brandon. He said after the post-fight, Brandon called in the press conference that this is going to be the contender fight. I will sit here and wait to be squared up with Pantoja. He got that. The way Pantoja spoke of Joshua Van, I mean the champ amongst champs. He said, when I was 23, I was still delivering food and working in the market. This kid been training for 5 years. Now he's about to fight for a UFC fucking title. I love it. I love the gratitude and the humbleness from the champ. And then for Royval, I just think we have to rebook the Brandon Royval Beneil Cop fight. That's the one that makes sense, so let's make it happen. Then moving on into the co-main, we had Alexandre Pantoja with a round 3 submission via rear naked choke over Kai Kara-France. And this was complete, utter domination from the champion. He got a takedown early, and you knew already it was like, oh shit. And KKF tried to battle off the cage. He was really going, trying to fight the hands. Pantoja wasn't having it. He controlled the fight right out of the gates, and I think that kind of took the wind out of Francis's sail early, who seemed really emotional coming in. He talked about his heritage, maturing as a man and a father. He really did everything he could to have a chance in this fight, and it wasn't enough. And to have the fight start that way, I think Pantoja broke him. But what was surprising was how calm and smooth the champ was. Even when the fight was on the feet, he was outstriking Kai Kara-France, and he was confident in doing so. So, you know, we just talked about the 23-year-old Josh Van, how he looks better every card. Pantoja does as well. He's been in the wars. A lot of the decisions, a lot of them have gone to decision, but to be able to do it this way against a striker, take it to him and dominate. Pantoja is one of the best flyweights we've ever seen, and he will have a long history and trajectory as well. But let's talk about the stats. Alexandre landed 70 total strikes, 42 of them significant. He was 3 for 6 in takedowns with 2 submission attempts and 7 minutes and 20 seconds of control time. KKF landed 57 total strikes, 38 of them significant, and he was 0 for 2 in takedown attempts. So now Alexandre extends that winning streak to 8. He has 4 consecutive title defenses, and is one of the longest reigning champs in the UFC. And Kai Kara France starts a new losing streak and moves to 1-2 since 2023. So what's next? Well, I think Pantoja is going to be taking on Van. And for Kai Kara France, how about Tagir Ulanbekov? I think that's the fight to make. I think we're kind of sick of some of these rematches of all the same guys fighting each other. We don't need to see Brandon Moreno and Kai Kara France again. But yeah, tough break for Kai. He's going to be kind of caught in the mix. There's a bunch of young up-and-coming talent. You know, he's not just going to be able to sit in the rankings and fight up. You know, a lot of these guys want to fight up. They feel like they deserve it. But when you got losses to a lot of them, it's just not going to go your way. And then on Pantoja's side, the reign that he's had as a champion, I mean, and the willingness to just accept a fight with the up-and-comer. A lot of guys could say, hey, you know, you need to get another win. You need to prove yourself more. He accepts it. He wants the big challenges. He wanted Mighty Mouse. Mighty Mouse wasn't having it, you know, and he feels like there's still good fights in the flyweight division coming up. But to defeat Brandon Moreno for the title, who was a world stopper at the time, to then defeating Brandon Royval, we know how good he is, then the up-and-coming Steve Erceg, they threw the up-and-coming Kai Asakura at him, now KKF. I mean, he has really dominated this division. And he talked about potential fights with Kyoji Horiguchi coming up, which, you know, he's a big Kyoji fan. They had trained together before. He wants to cement his legacy with the biggest and best opponents that he can. I mean, Tatsuro Taira didn't beat Royval. He's an up-and-comer one day. Asu Almabayev, Ramazan Tamirov. I mean, there's some young studs coming up as well that aren't even in the top 15. Pantoja is going to be one of those champs that we talk about. And at 30, what is he, 6? 35 maybe? Let's see. 35 years old in April, so a young 35. I think he's going to be there for quite some time. Moving on. We had Ilia Topuria with a round 1 knockout over Charles Oliveira. Now, at the end of the day, the moment, the aura of this card, what had happened and transpired leading up, this shit brought things to the next level. And you just kind of felt with this, the aura in the T-Mobile Arena that somehow, some way, Ilia was going to have a moment. You know, I had a feeling that UFC, since that 299-301 run, really needed a moment, and not only had Joshua Van and Alexandre Pantoja delivered, but Ilia Topuria did something special. I mean, he called his shot. He said he's not going to be able to stand up and trade with me. I'm going to knock him out in the first or second round. And Charles Oliveira witnessed the power firsthand after a nasty right hook put his lights out. He landed a couple more. He didn't need it. I mean, completely put him out. You hate to see that from the former champion and the fan favorite Dubronx Oliveira. But man, Ilia's on one of the best runs in UFC history. And I think with a potential win over Islam, has the ability to do one of the craziest things the UFC's ever seen at only probably 28 or 29 years old. And his true prime window starts at 30. He could be going down as one of the top 5 fighters in UFC history, if not the GOAT, depending on how long he wants to fight. I mean, at the run that he's been on, he could fight 3 more times. If you beat Islam, you beat Patty, you beat somebody else, you could go down and retire. So it's going to depend on the longevity of this run, but Ilia Topuria is that dude. And it's crazy to think from the Jai Herbert fight, where Jai had success against Ilia, how much he has grown and developed. Now HBO is putting out, they're doing a documentary with him. I guess the ratings in Spain were insane, which, you know, it was late their time, and they were tuned in for Ilia Topuria. This guy is something special, and he is the true El Matador. He's coming for everyone. Now, statistically, Ilia landed 24 total strikes, 21 of them significant with the knockdown and a minute and a second of control time. And Charles landed 10 total strikes, 9 of them significant. He was 0 for 2 in takedown attempts. But Ilia now, undefeated, extends that winning streak to 17. He is now a 2-weight class champion, has won his 3rd title fight with the UFC. And Charles starts a new losing streak. He is 2-2 since 2023. So what's next for these gentlemen? I think it has to be the fight to make is Islam and Ilia Topuria. I think regardless of the outcome against JDM, I mean, maybe Islam sees that and he really wants to stay a welterweight. I don't feel like that's going to be the case, though. But rumors is it's probably going to be JDM and Islam in New York in November, which is still quite a ways away. Ilia may want to have a fight in there. I know that Paddy Pimblett came in the octagon. Dana White in the post-fight press conference said I had already left. I would not have let him get in there. I just don't feel like that's the fight to make. I think you got to give one more before Ilia. So if Ilia does have another fight before Islam, I think it's got to be Arman Sarukian. You know, we'll see how the cards play, but I'm going to stick strong. I'm going to say Ilia and Islam because Ilia gets that win, Islam gets that win. It, you know, stamps their career, stamps their legacy, and puts them in that next level. And for Charles, I think he could fight Max Holloway, win or lose against Dustin Poirier. It's new blood, new opponent, history, veterans. I think that's the fight to make. But golly, UFC 317, Ilia and Alexandre Pantoja, two of the best to do it in the UFC, putting on a show. Fight of the year, Joshua Van, Brandon Royval. Beneil Dariush, he reminded us what he could do. Same with Payton Talbott. He's a wrecking force. And then we had straight violence. RoboCop did his thing. Jose Delgado is now on your radar if he wasn't already. Tracy Cortez is saying, I belong. And Terrance McKinney really getting that well-rounded attack as well. But I hope you enjoyed it because we're off for the 4th of July weekend. Then the UFC heads back to Nashville, Tennessee for a fight night card that should have some violence in store. Down south, we get the 10th ranked Derek Lewis and the 14th ranked Taliesin Teixeira. I'm your host, Shane Gillette. That's episode 105. See you next week.